Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter there at the bottom end of your screen is William Sila. Outgoing Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete is assuring Kenyans that the next Tanzanian president will not reverse foreign policies between the two countries. He described Kenya as a strategic partner in socio-economic development and Tanzania's biggest trading partner in Africa. Kikwete's visit comes against the backdrop of diplomatic mishaps between the neighboring nations. Take a look.
To cap his three-day official tour to Kenya, the outgoing Tanzanian president's farewell speech to parliament took a more diplomatic tone, avoiding the hard-hitting political undertones. Kikwete out to leave a legacy of renewed engagement between Kenya and Tanzania that has been on the rocks for the better part of the Jubilee administration. Diplomatically, the two countries have been shadow-boxing each other on issues of regional socio-economic engagement, specifically tourism, development and integration.
Kenya is a great friend of Tanzania and an ally. Our political and diplomatic relations are strong. We see eye to eye on many bilateral, regional, continental and global issues.
With less than 3 weeks to Tanzanian elections, Kikwete's message was that the existing friendship will be strengthened under Tanzania's new regime, and that Kenya had nothing to worry about. He also tackled the subject of regional integration.
I know there is a lot of anxiety and speculation about what will happen after the elections. Maneno mengi sana, kila mtu ana maneno yake. Have no worries. Have no fear. Have peace of mind. I don't see any change or shift of policy of Tanzania towards Kenya.
The Tanzanian president revisited the events of 2008, leading to the signing of the National Accord to save the country from possible anarchy after the disputed 2007 general election, essentially underpinning the historical ties he developed with Kenya.
To me and to Tanzanians, Kenya's problems are our problems. It is in this spirit that after the sad events after the elections in 2007, I did not wait to be invited. I came to lend a helping hand to relatives.
Kenya is a strategic partner in trade and development in the region. In fact, its biggest trade partner in Africa, whose growth has gradually risen to 40% in the last 5 years. And that the two countries will continue to partner in infrastructure projects to allow accessibility and connectivity to the region's markets, allow connectivity to either country's power grid for electricity for border towns, and build gas pipeline from Tanzania to Kenya. Kikwete leaves the country after bilateral talks with his Kenyan counterpart Uhuru Kenyatta, where they agreed to combat terror and radicalization, fight narcotics trade, poaching and cross-border crimes. Samogina, KTN News.
Let's focus on the East African integration. That is the basis of a big question. Tonight on KTN Prime, we're asking, do you think that East Africa will ever achieve true integration? Listening in to Tanzania's President Jakaya Kikwete there, do you think that East Africa will ever achieve true integration? Tweet us directly at KTN News. You can tweet me at Lindo Gutu. You can send a short message to the number 22155. That number is absolutely free for you. Let us know what you think. I'd love to sample your views during this bulletin. President Kikwete's address to Parliament came in the wake of a busy schedule that involved the head of state paying a courtesy call to Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero, where they charted a way forward in boosting trade and investment between Kenya and Tanzania. The head of East Africa's most populous nation also had the honor of having one of Nairobi's major roads named after him. Timothy Otieno reports.
Day 3 of President Jakaya Kikwete's visit to Kenya was marked with a visit to Nairobi's City Hall, where the head of state was honored by symbolically being handed the keys to the city. It was viewed as a sign of goodwill to the man that has steered Tanzania for a decade now.
Let me sincerely express my gratitude for what you've just done for me, and I will always remember this gesture of friendship and cooperation. So, Governor, Deputy Governor, Speaker, the county government, County Assembly, thank you very much.
Flanked by a delegation of Tanzanian government officials, the president pledged to be an ambassador to the city, highlighting the capital's investment potential even after he vacates office later this month.
It's a special honor for us that probably Nairobi is the last city that you're visiting as president.
Kikwete later visited one of the largest automobile assembly plants at the General Motors East Africa headquarters in Nairobi. There, he commissioned an assembly line destined to reach Tanzania in a few days. This as part of the plans to ensure trade and transfer of goods within the two nations is as smooth as possible.
I believe not too distant from now, we'll be able to meet East African demand for trucks and buses.
But his presence at the premise may have brought to the surface the menace plaguing trade between the East African nations, that of second-hand commodities.
Ultimately, if we have to develop our industries, we must find a way of getting out of second-hand at some stage. That we have to do. Really what we want to do is to find a way of making sure that our businesses continue to access the East African market unhindered across the 5 countries.
President Kikwete would then become the first sitting African president to have a road named after him in Nairobi when Milimani Road was renamed Jakaya Kikwete Road.
Kwa kweli nimefurahi sana kwa upendo mlionyesha, urafiki mlionyesha kwangu.
The president, who turns 65 years old Wednesday, is serving the last 3 weeks of his 10-year reign that has seen trade between Kenya and Tanzania grow up to 40% in the last 5 years. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Next time with integration, the Speaker of the Kenyan Senate, Ekwe Thuro, and his counterparts in the East African Legislative Assembly, Dan Kidega, are blaming non-tariff barriers such as tough immigration laws and politics for poor implementation of a common market. They say this has also slowed down the free movement of people and goods in the region. They want the political leadership to stop politicizing the common market protocol, which was ratified 5 years ago. They say this will allow citizens of the 5 member states to enjoy the fruits of regional integration. Patrick Amimo has the details.
13 reports, Right Honorable.
For this and next week, members of the East African Legislative Assembly will hold the second meeting of the Regional Parliament's 4th session in Nairobi City. Kenya's Senate Speaker Ekwe Thuro represented President Uhuru Kenyatta during the official opening of the session. Despite member states having ratified the East African Common Market Treaty in July 2010, the lawmakers are not amused that citizens of partner states are yet to enjoy the social and economic benefits of the Common Market Protocol.
We need to be seen to be living and keeping to the tempo of the protocol on the establishment of the East African Community Common Market, which came into force on July 1st, 2010, following ratification by all the 5 member states. The non-tariff barriers, for instance, are one hindrance to the enjoyment of these freedoms. To zero in on one such non-tariff barrier, Tanzania still requires citizens of partner states to produce yellow fever vaccination certificates on entry, apart from those carrying, of course, diplomatic passports. And you may wonder if yellow fever only attacks persons without diplomatic passports.
It is in this regard that we as an assembly are keenly watching the issue of sugar, given that the customs union is now fully fledged, and promote the intra-EAC trade. We plead that a divide between politics and integration be weighed with regards to the Common Market Protocol.
Plans to have a common currency are ongoing, together with those of a political federation. But common suspicions among the political leadership have delayed realization of a political federation.
Scholars have therefore suggested that a single presidency for the community may be the solution to some of our ethnicity problems. They argue that the problem of popular stripes in our respective countries, dominating and determining the political agenda in those countries, may become a thing of the past.
The regional parliament has also drafted a policy paper that will ensure bills passed by the parliament are assented to at summit meetings. EALA is also seeking full autonomy to have direct funding from partner states.
That pleads on behalf of the stakeholders that speeding up the process is of essence. Let us remain open to the hard fact that integration is living and the process of amendment should also be living.
We must therefore jealously guard the unity of East Africa in order to realize the attendant benefits.
Earlier on, Burundi's new Minister for East Africa Community, Leontin Nzeyimana, and Rwanda's new EALA member, Francois Xavier, were sworn in. Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete will give his final address to the Assembly on Tuesday next week. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
Tanzania's Independence Party, Chama cha Mapinduzi, may well be facing one of its toughest tests in the country's history following the new wave of opposition politics. For the first time, the party finds itself in the ring against a daring alliance of 4 parties that form the Umoja wa Katiba ya Wananchi Coalition, UKAWA. But are Tanzanians ready to break the jinx, or will the age-long status quo persist? Here now is KTN's Francis Ontomwa with the look into that matrix.
The onset of multi-party democracy in Tanzania in 1992 ushered in a fresh era, one that will prompt legal and constitutional changes, leading to the registration of 11 political parties. But even with that accomplishment, Independence Party Chama cha Mapinduzi CCM will still remain a colossus, and the opposition has continued to chase shadows ever since. But in 2015, things seem different, or are they? The opposition appears to have reinvigorated itself for the battle.
If at all the big people who have been saving the ruling party for many years, who have been saving the government of Tanzania for many years, are now against the ruling party, are now with the opposition party within the coalition, then don't expect something as usual as we've been experiencing in the previous election.
Top CCM figures, including Chadema presidential candidate Edward Lowassa, jumped ship, citing choking CCM kitchen politics. And today the opposition coalition comprises of 4 political parties under the banner Umoja wa Katiba ya Wananchi, UKAWA, an arrangement that conjures Kenya's Rainbow Coalition of 2002 that ended Independence Party KANU's 40-year reign.
What I see that make a difference today in the current Tanzania election is that is the formation of party alliance. First of all, we have for the first time, like in Kenya in 2002, the coalition of political parties aiming to overthrow the ruling party.
The ruling party, the party in power, has shown huge cracks in its ranks, and one of the results of those cracks is that one of the senior political leaders, the former Prime Minister, Edward Lowassa, has decamped. He has actually jumped from the ruling party and managed to clinch the leading ticket in the opposition, UKAWA.
The opposition in Tanzania has pegged its campaigns to the clamor for a new constitution, a tune resonating with a section of citizens yearning for economic and social change.
Nataka kwanza mabadiliko, afu na katiba ibadilishwe. Kwa sababu sisi wananchi sasa hivi yani tunataabika. Ukienda hospitali, pesa. Ukienda upande wa shule, pesa.
Wanazungumzia mabadiliko.
Former Prime Minister Frederick Sumaye, who worked under the third President Benjamin Mkapa between 1995 to 2005, is today a top critic of the ruling party, having teamed up with Lowassa in this year's race to State House.
Watanzania wameamua kwamba ni lazima mabadiliko ni mwaka huu. Tarehe 25 lazima CCM itoke madarakani. CCM haiwezi kuendelea tena kuwa chama tawala katika nchi hii kwa sababu haijatenda mambo ambayo ilikuwa imewaahidi wa Tanzania.
But in their composition and philosophies, critics question the opposition's chorus of change, given that a good number of the top guns are cut from the old CCM cloth.
Simlazimishi mtu kuchagua kwamba ende huko kila mtu atangalie tarehe 25 anafanya nini. Atangalie atakayemchagua ambaye atamsaidia tarehe 25.
Opinion survey by Toweza East Africa shows that youths who make up the largest constituency of the country's voter register are the main supporters of the new wave of opposition politics, while the aged still believe in CCM.
The younger people, understandably, are spearheading change, and they are the most impatient in demanding change. The youth, the new voters, some of them have never voted before. People just turned 18 and enthusiastically looking forward to their vote making a difference.
For a nation that has clung to the aprons of a single party since independence, which way Tanzania is the critical question many will be asking as the clock ticks to the October 25th general elections. Francis Ontomwa, KTN News, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Which way Tanzania? That is the question on the minds of so many, not just Tanzanians, but the entire region as well. Let's bring you back into the country. Access to healthcare in Marsabit County is being affected by an influx of Ethiopians who crossed the border to seek treatment at the Moyale Referral Hospital. A recent 3-day medical camp by the Marsabit County government attracted over 6,000 people. Karen Derry with more information.
The health situation in Marsabit County may be termed unusual. This is the Moyale Referral Hospital, one of the few health facilities that are in the area. A 3-day free medical camp organized by the county government of Marsabit attracted close to 6,000 people, an overwhelming number even for the additional practitioners who had traveled from Nairobi. Moyale being right at the border of Kenya and Ethiopia, many of those who turned up for the medical camp were from Ethiopia, making it hectic for the doctors.
Population ya watu ni wengi sababu wametoka huko ndani ya Ethiopia pamoja na kuna watu wa Moyale constituency wamekuwa wengi sana. Sasa ile shida iko saa hizi ni theater inakuwa ni moja.
We are able to deal with 200 dental cases from yesterday up to today. We have had over 100 surgeries done in the last 2 days. This is a big number.
Tumeleta madawa ya kutosha, vifaa vingine ya machines ya kuangalia ya kufanya uchunguzi yote tuko nao siku ya leo.
The situation here is dire. Some residents are forced to walk for over 60 kilometers just to access medical care.
Ya mbeleni hakuna kitu tumepata mbeleni.
Wanaambia wasikule sababu watafanywa upasuaji. Huko wanangojea kupasuliwa, huko wanalia njaa, so kuna shida kama hizo, tatizo huko na pale.
Another huge problem presents itself here. The mortuary at the Moyale Referral Hospital is not operational. It has been this way for the last 1 year. The doors to the only mortuary in Moyale are locked.
Mtu ambaye familia yake haiko area hiyo atapata shida sababu hiyo mortuary amefungwa na hakuna mahali nyingine itapelekwa.
Conditions za mortuary ni sio mzuri, lakini sisi kama serikali ya county tunaweka mpangilio na tumeanza sasa tumeanza kurekebisha.
And while devolution has had its fair share of challenges, in far-flung remote areas it has enabled residents access health services that were otherwise difficult to access.
Wala kina mama ambao wanajifungua hapa, pengine tulikuwa tunapata kama moja kwa mwezi mzima. Sasa tunapata zaidi ya 200. Mambo inaendelea kwa sababu nia na fikira imerudi ya kwamba watu wanaona kuna tofauti kati ya wakati ule na wakati huu.
Moyale has in the recent past been caught up in strife and conflict, therefore derailing development. There is a gleam of hope though, as the region has been relatively calm in the recent past and minimal cases of violence between Kenyan and Ethiopian communities reported.
Afya ni sekta muhimu sana, hasa kufufua uchumi yetu na kufufua hali ya maendeleo ya kila aina. Tukiwa na wananchi ambao wako na afya bora, uwezo wa kufanya kazi pia inarudi, nafasi ya kusoma pia inarudi.
The residents hope that Marsabit County will grow in leaps and bounds economically as it has been marginalized for a long time. Carol Derry, KTN News, Moyale, Marsabit County.
So, outgoing President Jakaya Kikwete is assuring Kenyans that the next Tanzanian president will not reverse their foreign policies between the two countries. On our big question tonight, we are asking you, do you think that East Africa will ever achieve true integration? Do you think that East Africa will ever achieve true integration? Joseph Githinji says yes, already Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda have made progress by removing trade and travel barriers. Mwembe Tutu, if it couldn't thrive under Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, it will never happen under the sun. Patricia Mondi says if Kenya and Uganda stop sidelining Tanzania, integration is the best thing that can happen for this region. Svet says yes, it can if personal and political self-seeking interest wouldn't override benefit of socio-economic development. Finally, Charles Opil says EAC integration will take time. Tanzania is chained to SADC, but Burundi is in a crisis. South Sudan is lost. Your feedback on our big question tonight, whether or not you think East Africa will ever achieve true integration. You're watching KTN Prime. We thank you for staying with us. We're taking a short break. I'll be back with more news for you.
16 teenagers charged with being drunk and disorderly.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's now focus on the education sector. The heated hearing of the appeal in which the Kenyan public teachers' employer is seeking a reversal of the pay rise concluded. This comes as Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi maintains his support for the proposed performance contracts for teachers. Michelle Ngele with that story.
The 6th of October marks the end of the hearing of the appeal in which the Teachers Service Commission is seeking a reversal of the 50 to 60% pay rise awarded to teachers. The hearing was concluded by submissions from Kupat's lawyer Judith Kusera, who argued that advice by the Salaries and Remunerations Commission was not binding to independent commissions, after TSC and SRC argued that the Salaries Commission should have been consulted before the pay rise was awarded. The judgment of the case will be given on the 6th of November. But as both parties await the court's judgment, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi has supported TSC's proposal that teachers should be subjected to performance contracts, as this will help the ministry keep a close eye on the use of money allocated for teachers by the ministry.
When we say our ed teachers, our principals must be held to account. It's obvious to you. It must be obvious to you. How can we give 44 million shillings every year to our institutions and somebody cannot be held to account? Tell me. Really? If it happens in other places, why not in our schools? I like the idea of the employer TSC subjecting teachers to performance contracting.
Kaimenyi also advised the TSC to appeal the High Court decision to stop the hiring of relief teachers. This comes only days after the High Court stopped the hiring of 70,000 relief teachers by the Teachers Service Commission after an application filed by the Trade Unions Congress of Kenya. Certifying the application as urgent, Justice Dumanderi said the TSC should stop the hiring process until the teacher's case is determined. Meanwhile, the Kenya Certificate of Secondary School examinations are already underway. These students from Afraha High School in Nakuru just finished science practical exams. They can only hope to perform as well as their counterparts in private schools whose studies have been uninterrupted.
The syllabus was complete. Our work was just to fix revision questions, and we took them seriously.
It did kind of affect us, but we revised enough, so we are confident of what we have done.
We had the completed syllabus, and our students have the confidence that they have all what it takes to do this exam.
Teachers, however, had earlier stated that they would not mark examinations they have not supervised, and so the fate of practical examinations, which began last Monday, remains unclear. Michelle Ngele, KTN News.
Alright, so the entire country is aware that the El Nino rains are on the way, and the weatherman is warning coastal Kenya residents and those visiting the region to prepare for possible flooding and landslides starting tomorrow. The Kenya Meteorological Services says the coast will experience heavy rainfall beginning Wednesday and possibly storms on Thursday. Residents in Kwale, Mombasa, Kilifi and Tana River are asked to be particularly careful and avoid waterways. The heavy rains will persist until Friday with some relief over the weekend. On Monday, however, the North Coast will experience more rainfall. Parts of the Mount Kenya region, Nairobi, Mtito and Kibwezi will experience some rain on Thursday. It is expected that El Nino rains will start in the 4th week of October. Let's see how that goes in the coming days. You're watching KTN Prime, and we're taking a short break. But just before we do that, let me see if I can sample 2 or 3 of your feedback. We asked you in our big question tonight if you think that East Africa will ever achieve true integration. Francis Onyama says different economies with different levels of corruption, integration is a little bit far. Solomon Ambuku says yes, if we replace culprits club of killers of democracy with the coalition of the willing. Joseph Murigi says yes, and very soon, if only we can in future have such leaders as the current ones. Paul Mwani says no way, because of political, economic and social differences we cannot achieve that true integration. Some of your feedback, and we thank you for it. We are taking another break. We'll be back. Stay with us.
In Nyeri, and this is KTN News.
My name is Marcy Kandia in Eldoret, and this is KTN News. Good evening and welcome to KTN Business. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Healthcare technology is now impacting the way Kenyans receive care. 27-year-old Felix Kimaro developed Total Health, a startup he created to provide expectant mothers with information needed to take care of their babies and themselves. On the second episode of Texpo, Felix Kimaro tells us how he's made 2 million Kenya shillings in revenue 1 year after Total Health was rolled out. Idea born from a social need after losing one of his loved ones.
Kenya is rated one of the countries which is unsafest for any parent to give birth, and you will see when the First Lady is out there trying to solve this huge problem that we have as a country. So it was for this reason that we decided, can we build a platform that is able to work with the mother during pregnancy and also during the early years of their children's life until at least the child is 5 years old, where we say that they are okay going forward. So right now we cover content on warning signs of a pregnancy is our big thing. Also during pregnancy, what we are big on is reminding them to go for their antenatal visits, which is key.
Started in March 2014 by this 27-year-old, Total Health has since lived up to its name of meeting needs of marginalized communities while making a living out of it.
They don't have smartphones, they use the basic feature phones. So we've developed an SMS registration for us to be able to register parents to where even places which do not have internet. So for a parent to register to Total Health, they go to our short code, which is you text the word Total, the date of birth of the child and the area where they come from. The system chooses a specific message for the mother to receive, then automatically sends out. Every Monday at 9 a.m. the system does all the calculations, and every Thursday at 9 a.m. So for that value that we give to the counties, for that value that we give to the organizations, we charge a monthly fee. So for that monthly fee, some pay 10,000 a month, some pay 20,000 a month, depending on the number of parents they have in our platform. It's what has sustained Total Health to where it is right now, making revenues of about 2 million in the 1 year that has gone.
While he might not have a medical background, Toto Health has a public health specialist and pediatrician who dabbles as content producer for the SMS platform. She spends the better part of her day crafting messages for end users and responding to questions asked by the recipients from over 6 counties across Kenya.
So I'm responsible for everything that has to do with SMS that we send out.
One of the beneficiaries of this short message platform is Abin Jerry, a mother of 2 and a third one on the way.
But because of those SMSs, I was able to seek advice in hospital, and they were able now to run tests and see what was wrong with my child, which was rickets.
An application like Toto Health is one that saves expectant mothers and mothers the hassle of going all the way to the hospital, especially for those living in marginalized communities. And what it's doing is bringing services closer to these mothers or expectant mothers with just a short message on their cell phones. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN, Text.
UK logistics and engineering firm Atlas Development is set to diversify from the oil and gas sector to cushion itself from reduced exploration activity. In a statement to stakeholders, Atlas says in light of the current state of the oil and gas market, the firm continues to implement initiatives aimed at further diversifying the company's offering and identifying new sectors of operation. Top on that list is the potash mining in Ethiopia, which Atlas believes will generate revenue. In September, the NSE listed the firm, announcing a 1 billion shilling loss on the back of a reduced contract base and restructuring costs incurred during the down sale of operations. Atlas is also eyeing acquisitions with the region and says it is in the advanced stages of discussions with potential takeover targets in Kenya, Tanzania and Ethiopia. And despite being neighbors and having the biggest economies in East Africa, Kenya and Tanzania have had a strained relationship that has sometimes played out in the open. But as Adelaide Chengole now tells us, the state visit by Tanzanian President Jakaya Kikwete could mark the start of a new chapter for the two countries.
How are you?
It was all smiles and platitudes as Tanzania's president made his 3-day state visit to Kenya.
Our exports as Kenya to Tanzania grew by 5.5% to some Kenya shillings 43 billion. Nearly 20 billion shillings worth of goods and services from Tanzania came into Kenya.
Our two countries account for nearly 70 to 80% of the intra-East African trade. This demonstrates in empirical terms how much our two countries need each other.
But manufacturers in Kenya have had little to smile about. They accuse Tanzania of putting non-trade barriers that slow down trade.
There has been a number of issues around non-tariff barriers, especially around borders, that sometimes can be a bit frustrating.
Local car manufacturers have also taken issue with Tanzania, saying it is undermining the East African Community Customs Union by refusing to give locally assembled vehicles duty-free access to the Tanzanian market. Tanzania has argued that Kenyan manufacturers only assemble the cars and do not produce them. As such, the cars do not qualify for duty-free access and are instead subject to a 30% excise tax.
When we call it made in Kenya, East Africa, it is really a product of East Africa.
These actions have created a rift between Kenya and Tanzania. Among the most telling signs of this was the formation of a partnership between Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda, dubbed the Coalition of the Willing, that has sidelined Tanzania. And this year the two countries were involved in a trade spat after Kenya tour vans were barred from accessing Tanzania's parks. Kenya reciprocated by barring Tanzanian buses from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. As such, the visit by the Tanzanian president could be seen as a white flag to what has been a tense relationship.
We are all members of the East African community, one of whose main objective is to promote trade and investments between member states.
So far, Tanzania has agreed to work with Kenya to deal with poaching, terrorism and drug trafficking. And in order to what has been a major issue between Kenya and Tanzania, President Kikwete also made a site visit to General Motors plant in Nairobi and flagged off the first batch of locally assembled vehicles that will enter Tanzania duty-free.
I believe not too distant from now, we'll be able to meet East African demand for trucks and buses.
But will this mark the end of what has been a frosty relationship between Kenya and Tanzania and set the stage for a more harmonious future for the two countries?
I've seen how the efforts that we're making towards building that capacity, and I believe in no time we should be able to get where we really want to get.
Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
The board has released 3.3 billion shillings to the 47 counties for roads maintenance. The money accounts for 15% of the money collected through the Roads Maintenance Fund after the bill was passed back in June. Nairobi County will receive the lion's share of the fund at 165 million Kenya shillings. Also benefiting from the allocation will be Turkana County, which will receive 133 million Kenya shillings. Kakamega and Mandera counties will each receive 113 million shillings, and Nakuru County gets 103 million Kenya shillings. Lamu County will receive the least amount, 26 million shillings, followed by Isiolo County at 38 million shillings. The money is being disbursed from the Fuel Levy Fund. The amount of money collected by the Roads Board is expected to rise significantly after Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich implemented a 3 shillings addition to the fuel levy for every litre purchased. The proposed Kenya Roads Bill 2015 also plans to introduce toll charges on major national roads and a road user charge based on distance travelled for other county and national roads. Now, the week started with the Kenya shilling gaining some marginal strength against the US dollar. Let's take a look at how it has fared today as at close of the markets, and also a look at the Nairobi Securities Exchange performance. And that's it for KTN Business. For more news, log on to our website, standardmedia.co.ke or ktnnews.com. I'm Joy Doreen Bira.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to tonight's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Lynn Washira, and we kick off the bulletin in matters football elections, where Gor Mahia chairman Ambrose Racher has made another stab at the Football Kenya Federation chairman's post. Racher finished 4th 4 years ago, but believes the law has changed and the football terrain now favors him. He launched his bid flanked by Coast National Executive Committee member Hussein Terry, and Nairobi's branch Dan Shikanda. Hassan Juma reports.
After a bit of soul searching, Gor Mahia's chairman, who doubles up as the SportPesa Premier League chairman, Ambrose Racher, now wants to go for the top seat in football. He remains adamant that he is not launching his bid late, insisting that he had to consult widely before making the decision.
It was only inaugurated on Saturday, and I say at least there is some process that is starting, and that the electoral process will now be governed, will now be conducted by a board and not by an aspirant.
He was 4th 4 years ago. Does he believe he has what it takes to win the elections this time round?
Things have changed. 1, 4 years have since lapsed. and perhaps those who did not know me better. Last time we blamed the incumbent for not doing much. The 4 years should now lead you to take account, take stock, and whether we need to say the same thing, or whether you yourself should be able to see it and say what has moved, what has changed. So the 5 key goals or targets for me before 2019 is to have viable youth coaches and referees training programs in all 47 counties, or in all the 47 FKF branches. I am a believer of grassroots football.
He was flanked by Vice Chair's candidate to St. Terry, who was the Coastal NEC member, as well as Nairobi's Dan Shikanda. And while he did not unveil his running mate and remained coy on the matter, insisting that he is ready to work with whoever is elected by the delegates, reports indicate that he is leaning heavily on someone from outside Nairobi. Hassan Juma, KTN Sports.
Definitely looking forward to see how that race will unfold. But to different news now, Kenya's 2014 Commonwealth Games participant in triathlon, Swale Balala, hopes to recover from a nagging injury before the end of the year and eventually qualify for the Rio Olympics. African triathletes were this year dealt a blow after All African Games host Congo scrapped off triathlon from the list of sports that were contested in the just completed games.
Triathlon as a sport may not have garnered a lot of attention across the country. However, the coastal towns of Mombasa, Kilifi and Malindi continue to record a rise in numbers of participants. Most of the schools in Mombasa are even introducing the sport at a tender age. Swale Balala, one of the best and passionate Kenyan triathletes, confirms a notable surge in interest for the sport in Mombasa.
Football is not everything. There's other sports as well, and some people might like swimming and cycling and haven't really thought that you could combine the sport, and are not motivated to do it. So I'm the one who's telling them, look, the sport is there, we have the foundation, the best place to train for it is in Mombasa.
Balala represented Kenya at the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland, where he learned valuable lessons despite not getting to the podium.
This was something you couldn't ask for. It's amazing. You go against the best in the world. It's like a golfer finally playing against Tiger Woods, or a swimmer swimming against Michael Phelps. It's something you can't say, not anyone can say they've done. So I can say that I've gone against the best in the world.
Balala, who has been nursing a nagging injury, laments lack of enough events, adding that it was unfortunate the sport was left out of the just concluded All African Games in Congo, Brazzaville.
All African Games is gone. There's an event in Mombasa at the end of the year in December, so hopefully aiming for that one. If I'm healthy and strong, I'll be able to make it. And then see next year, because as we all know, next year is Rio 2016, and it's not that easy for a triathlete to go into the Olympics. You don't just need to be the best in your country, you need to be one of the best in your continent.
He's currently a swimming coach at a school in Mombasa, and he hopes the sport will continue to grow beyond the coastal borders.
If I'm there in triathlon now, who's coming next? And of course, everywhere in the world people are progressing. The competition is getting harder. And in Mombasa, if we go low, in Kenya, if we go lower, as people go higher, when we finally come to D-Day, where will we be?
Triathlon combines swimming, cycling and running.
And that's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Sports. But be sure to join us tomorrow for another comprehensive edition of KTN Sports. I'm Lynn Washira. Do have a very good night. Enjoy the rest of your viewing, and definitely keep it KTN.
Right, so do you think that East Africa will ever achieve true integration? That was our big question on KTN Prime tonight. Lots of feedback. A good number of you are not very optimistic about it. Let's see what some of you had to say. Just give me a few minutes. There we go. Daniel OCM says, no, not in the next 100 years. Dictatorship around won't allow it to materialize. Eric Okondo, you say no. Why not? United we believe it will happen, and divided we stand. So shall we fall and fail in future? Wekesa Obonyo say no, unless it's done in phases. The first one being opening of all boundaries between concerned countries. Wasabi Milian says no. EAC can't realize true integration because of suspicion among states that is great. Anton Haukwa says, no, these countries that form the EAC have different economic growth and it's difficult to integrate them. Finally, Waitimu says, yes, already Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda have made progress by removing trade and travel barriers. So your feedback on our big question tonight, whether or not you think East Africa will ever achieve true integration. And we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for watching KTN Prime. For those of you on KTN Home, that's where we leave it. For those of you on KTN News, Worldview begins right now. So tonight, we are talking about cancer. It would be interesting to have you take part in that conversation. We'll be having a clinical psycho-oncologist. This is a person who breaks down the news for patients who have been diagnosed with cancer. It would be very interesting to listen in. You can watch that on DSTV channel 274, Zuku channel 14, GoTV channel 94. Use the hashtag Worldview KTN Kenya. Have a good night.